So the Cowboys get whooped by the Broncos 24-44, and this defense, doesn't matter who you line up against them, doesn't matter what players at quarterback, doesn't matter the receivers or running backs. Any point during the season, any week, this defense stands a good chance at getting absolutely obliterated. And I know there's injuries across the defense. I can't name half the guys in their secondary at this point. I mean, I don't even know who's playing corner and safety. They've got so many injuries at these positions, right? Defensive line really isn't worth a damn. Linebackers aren't worth a damn. I mean, there are so many holes on this defense. And even before the injuries occurred, there were so many holes. Yeah, the injuries are just a cherry on top, if you want to go that route and say that. But the Cowboys aren't going to compete for anything with a defense like this, unfortunately. Still a lot of season left to go, but it just keeps getting worse. Getting worse and worse and worse. And obviously, you've got guys coming back in Overshown and Ravel. Not going to put a lot of eggs in that basket. You've got a guy coming off his second major knee surgery. You've got Ravel, a rookie, coming off a major injury. And nothing against those guys. They both have worked their ass off to get back on the field in a timely manner, as quick as they can. But with as bad as this defense is, that is a tall order to ask them to come in and turn this thing around, right? And so the question is, are they going to move on from Flus? Are they going to make a trade? What are they going to do here to help fix this defense? And, you got your special teams coordinator. He's the ex-49ers defensive coordinator. So if you fire Flus, that's potentially a guy that you can slide in there. But it's not going to fix anything in 2025. I mean, maybe you get just a tiny smidge better. I don't know. It's not just a defensive coordinator play calling issue. While that is an issue, I won't argue with you there. This team lacks players. Even when all the starters are healthy, the team lacks players. There's not a pass rusher in sight on this defensive line. Not a linebacker in sight on the second level. Even when your safeties are healthy, Donovan Wilson, Malik Hooker, they're barely starting caliber safeties. And I would even say Donovan Wilson might not even be a starting caliber safety at this point. So this defense has holes all over the place, and the argument can be made for a trade that, you want to say a single player can't come in and help this defense. Well, the Cowboys were number one in EPA during Micah's tenure here. They're 32 without Micah. Now, there was some other turnover. Obviously, you lost this offseason Jordan Lewis, who was a big voice in that locker room. Really good player in the secondary. You lost Tank Lawrence, who was, again, a big voice in the locker room. A good run stuffer off the edge. And so you lost those guys. You pair that with the Micah Parsons loss. And so you can say it wasn't just one player in Micah that kept them afloat all those years. It was a combination of guys. But you can't argue the fact that Micah was the head of the playmakers on that defense. And so trading for Max Crosby, if that's even possible to do, because reports are saying that the Raiders aren't interested. Same thing with Hendrickson from the Bengals. Does one player change the makeup of this defense? Can one guy help them get third down stops? Can one guy do enough for this defense to help turn this thing around? And I don't think so. I don't think that's possible. I think this defense is just too far gone. It's a is what it is situation at this point. That said, the argument can be made that you bring in a guy, let's just say Max Crosby, because it's the big name. I know it's not probably realistic from what the reports are saying. But that's a guy who is signed through, I think the year is 2030, I want to say. And so you would have him here for a long time. All right. And you can do stuff with this contract. I put another video out about it. You can funny money this thing where guy like that, you can still retain George Pickens, keep this offense humming. But at least that's a guy who's proven. You're not going to count on 2 first-round picks in 2026 to come in and make impacts right away. And to have a guy who's proven versus, having to rely on rookies in free agency to rebuild this defense in 2026 might not be as realistic as saying we have a guy, might not help as much in 2025, but in 2026, that's a proven guy who can get in here, have a full training camp under his belt, work with the DC, help turn this defense around and take it from the 32nd ranked defense to maybe 24th, 25th in a year. And if this offense can keep humming, and there's no guarantees this offense will keep humming in 2026, but if they can, then maybe you start having a conversation about playoffs at that point, right? And depending on their free agent acquisitions, their draft picks and whatnot. If you get a guy like Max Crosby, I just, again, use him for an example because it's the big name that comes to mind. If you can pop him in here and lose a first round pick in 26 and a first round pick in 27, both Green Bay picks at that point, maybe you're cooking with something in 2026. I don't know. But I see the argument for both sides of the table on the trade fence there. I think I can go either way, honestly. It doesn't matter to me. I see both the logic in both arguments. I think this defense is in need of a true rebuild. So having 4 first-round picks over the next 2 seasons is key. But you're working on a limited time frame here through 2028 with Dak's contract. And so will they extend him after that point? Will he still be playing at a high level, even just past 2025? Yeah, who knows? 2026, 2027. So a lot of years there to ask this offense to keep playing at the level they're playing. So, again, I don't think trading for a single player fixes this defense, but I think trading for a player can help this defense turn it around quicker than relying on first-round picks alone, if that makes sense, if you follow what I'm saying there. Offensively, the Cowboys struggled this game against the Broncos. I put out a tweet, 17 points through 3, halfway through the third quarter, I think is a reasonable ask for this offense, given the defense they were playing against. It's one of the league's best defenses. And so if you told me that they were in that position and had a serviceable defense, I would say that's a normal thing for an NFL team to score 17 through 3.5 quarters. Or 2.5 quarters through 2.5 quarters against this Broncos defense. But unfortunately, the offense has to be basically flawless week in and week out. It was unfortunate. The defense got that interception early on, and the Cowboys couldn't punch it in. They had a 2nd and 1, threw the ball, and then they shot themselves in the foot with a false start on 3rd and inches there from the goal line. And, turning what should have been a touchdown into 3 points is obviously a massive win for the Broncos and a big momentum shifter. And you saw in the following series, the Cowboys are going to force them to punt the ball. So things are looking good for the defense. James Houston lines up offsides. Broncos go get a new set of downs after that, and they go and score a touchdown. So it's an 11-point swing right there. And momentum's a big thing in the NFL. I mean, not everybody believes it is. I think it is. I think most people believe that it is. And to have a momentum swing like that in what was probably going to be a dogfight type game at best, I think was a big deal. You saw the Broncos just do whatever they wanted at that point offensively after that. So this offense would have to basically keep up scoring touchdowns just about every drive, bare minimum 3, but probably touchdowns every drive just to compete with this Broncos team. And I think that's just an unfair ask. You saw the classic Dak unforced error just before halftime there, where if you get a field goal and you get the ball back at halftime, you really tighten this game up at that point. But they come out and Dak throws the interception just before the half, and so it remained a larger gap at that point than it probably should have been after halftime. Could have been a 1-possession game if you got that field goal and touchdown after half, and I think that changes the game dramatically, potentially at that point, kind of flips the script. But it didn't happen that way, and he throws the interception, threw another interception later on, looked like a miscommunication with CeeDee Lamb. The running game just couldn't get going. The Broncos defensive line just whooped on the Cowboys offensive line all game, and you see why Brock Hoffman is a backup in this league. I said a couple weeks ago, the backups, while they're playing well, the backups tend to play well in limited capacity. And so the longer they stay out there, the more likely it is you start to see holes in their game. And you saw holes against the Panthers. You saw holes again this week where, this offensive line just couldn't keep up with the defensive line of the Broncos. Both offensive tackles for the Cowboys got whooped pretty often. It wasn't a pretty sight. It was not a pretty sight from this Cowboys offensive line, which has been one of their strengths this season in the games they've been winning. It's been a good effort from the offensive line in those games, helped to establish the run, and in turn, Dak is able to run play action and pass the ball well, but it just didn't happen this week. So moving forward, I don't know what is going to happen. This is going to be, before the season started, I said this is going to be a team that hovers the 500 mark. I think it's going to remain that way. They're going to beat teams that you probably think they should lose to. They're going to lose against teams that you probably think they should compete better against, like the Broncos. And I just don't know what to expect from this team moving forward, other than they're probably going to be around that 500 mark for the rest of the season. So not sure what else there is to say this Monday morning, but I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll catch you later.